For Honor was one of my most anticipated multiplayer games of all time, so much so that I even made a video explaining why people should buy the game, from my experiences with the alpha and beta tests. The whole promise of knights, Vikings, and samurai duking it out with realistic and slower methodical combat with beautiful animations and attention to detail, it sounded like it could be something really, really unique. And to be fair, For Honor actually still is really unique. But that may actually be part of the reason the game has been on a heavy decline since its release. So, if you want to stick around, let's take an in-depth look at where For Honor went wrong and how future efforts can be implemented to not repeat the same mistakes. There were a number of things that went wrong with For Honor. It wasn't one small thing that contributed to the decline of the game, but a combination of many factors. In no particular order, let's start with the balance of the game. Now, don't get me wrong, I and pretty much everyone else fully expected balancing issues for this game. Like I said earlier, the fact that For Honor was so unique may have contributed to the fact that the devs had absolutely no idea how to balance it, simply because there was nothing else to compare it to. It's not like a Street Fighter or a Mortal Kombat. For Honor has, multiple modes from 1v1s and 2v2s to 4v4s with small minions in a slower, more reaction-based style of combat than most fighters. So that's why you typically want alpha tests and beta tests for this type of game. The thing is, they did that. There were alpha tests for over 5 months before the game came out, and then there were open beta tests, then the game came out, and then another 5 months passed without any real semblance of balance. And you know what? This may sound arrogant, but it really wouldn't be that hard at all to move this game in the right direction. There are certain characters in the game that are so bad that when the devs were asked what their favorite characters were, and one of them said Kensei, the most notably underpowered character in the game, the dev remarked,
"She's not the best choice, but I don't know, I love that hero."
It means they're fully aware a character is so awful that it's a bad idea to play him, and yet in 5 months since the game's release, they simply decided to not really do anything meaningful to fix the character. So the people who decided to main Kensei quickly lost faith in the game as they realized month after month nothing would make their character usable. Now, on the other side is Warlord, who is by far the best character in the game. The thing is, the Warlord is closer to how all the characters in the game actually should be. Let's compare Warlord to Orochi, which is the character that I mained. Now, against a competitive player, Orochi can use a top light attack and his zone attack. Occasionally, he can use an ability called Storm Rush for a big punish, but that is on extremely bad mistakes that rarely happen from good players. And that's it. That's all Orochi can do at a competitive level if he wants to be as efficient as possible. Now, Warlord has, and I need to take a deep breath for this one, as a heavy class, more fast attacks than the Assassin Orochi class. He has light attacks that can chain into heavies, his heavies can chain into lights, his heavy attacks have hyper armor, he has an extremely fast unblockable headbutt that can shatter anyone trying to turtle, his headbutt can be comboed to a poke, which can be comboed to a side light, or mixed up with a side heavy, or take a side heavy feint into a guard break. Speaking of guard break, he has the best throw in the game, able to catapult players in any direction in a ludicrous distance, often throwing them off cliffs and ending them with no chance for retaliation. He has the second highest health in the game, he has an unlocked running charge that can wall splat for massive damage. He has a strangely high damage zone attack that covers a massive distance and tracks unbelievably, and finally has the shortest dodge recovery of the game on a character classified as a heavy. So just look at what Warlord can do and compare it to what Orochi can do, to what Kensei can do. How the absolute fuck are these two characters even in the same game? One has a symphony of synergy and usable moves, and the others can basically spam 1 or 2 attacks. The developers know that Warlord is better than everything else. Back in March, 4 months ago, a developer admitted that every single thing about Warlord, other than his ability to turtle, which is also extremely strong by the way, was imbalanced.
The big issue, the big imbalance with the Warlord is not linked to the fact that he's too good to defend with his shield defense. It's everything that he does after that. everything.
And this was 4 months ago they admitted this, and there's been no change. The thing is, this is a symptom of the devs having no idea that people would actually be good at their game. They were baffled that people found parrying so easy, and characters in the game have extensive attack combos that require previous attacks in the chain to hit, but they're so slow that you pretty much never ever see these combos utilized. Now, they wouldn't intentionally design useless combos, so that just means they severely underestimated how even just mediocre their players would be. So, as a developer, naturally you'd want to either buff these weaker, far more limited classes, or nerf the more powerful ones. So, what do? They fucking nerf Kensei, the worst character in the game! he used to have this thing where he could dash and maintain a superior block on his dash, which basically meant, if somebody was attacking from the right and he dodged to the right, he would be blocking while he was dodging, and he could basically negate recovery and get a guard break or something like that. They nerfed that, which is one of, honestly, the best parts about Kensei, and added, other things that are basically useless because they just don't have a grasp on what makes things good and what makes things bad. And on top of this, they essentially do nothing to the best characters in the game like Warlord and Peacekeeper. How is it 5 months in and Warlord remains virtually untouched? Almost every tournament that's been held in this game has been won by a Warlord or Peacekeeper, but apparently that doesn't mean anything because of another big point in relation to balance. Big Data! Big Data is a meme that came from the devs of For Honor, though not intentionally. Basically, it means they look at big data from their game, essentially win rates and mass numbers and figures, without really checking the context of these situations. Then they actually do or do not balance things based off of these raw numbers. One of the developers actually said that Raider, at the time, one of the lesser characters, was a Peacekeeper, who remains the second best character in the game, killer. Which anyone who played the game for more than 5 seconds could tell you that was nowhere near the case. But the numbers said that Raider had a higher win rate over Peacekeeper, so the Raider must be fine. This is a completely asinine way to balance a competitive fighting game. Data isn't useless at all, don't get me wrong, but you also have to take into account, context when you're balancing. You also need to balance around the right data. If the data you are collecting is from 2 people who have played the game for 5 minutes, well, what the hell is the point of that data? It's meaningless. Now, to be fair, the developers have said that they also take big data from a higher bracket of MMR as well, but their matchmaking system is also utterly broken, so that kind of makes that whole point obsolete too. This next point always draws out a bit of controversy, but it's true whether people want to hear it or not. The developers tend to balance the game around the wrong group of players. And that sounds arrogant, but you always want to balance a competitive game around competitive players. Not because they're so much cooler than everyone, not even because they're better than everyone. They just simply have over time seen the most possible combinations of attacks, character picks, strategies, exploits, etc. You never balance the game around a guy who just started playing, and it's sort of like a linear graph where you'd almost always want to balance the game around the guys who have taken everything in the game has to offer. It's just basic logic. So when the devs actually do listen and actually patch the game, they do so in such a drastically one-sided way. They see complaints about Peacekeeper and Warlord, so they nerf the third hit chain light attack from Peacekeeper, which in a nutshell does pretty much nothing. They apparently nerfed the Warlord's headbutt, but to this day I still don't even know what the nerf did because it was so insignificant. Warlord and Peacekeeper are still the 2 best characters in the game since day 1. And then they see someone like Shigoki, who had a very cheesy running charge, and instead of properly balancing it, they basically just removed all use from it entirely, making Shigoki almost unusably bad. Conqueror had a shield bash that was very safe, making it almost impossible for some characters to get damage in when he performed this move. The devs then nerfed it so hard that Conqueror fell off the map entirely. It's like they either tickle the character or strap C4 to their face. It's always one or the other. They don't seem to have an idea how to balance the game to the point of balance. When your base game only has 12 characters, knocking some of them completely off the usable map is a massive problem that can't be ignored. And yet here we are months after nerfs to Conqueror and Shigoki, and they're still in the same boat. In fact, half the characters in the game are in a similar boat, and the name of the boat is the SS I Can't Break Turtles. One of the biggest problems with For Honor at the time of this rant is the so-called defensive meta. Basically, the game mechanics punish you for attacking. It's a fighting game where you actually don't want to fight, and this happens for a number of reasons. Firstly, blocking is simply too effective. There's essentially no chip damage in the game, meaning you can just sit there and block someone forever until the time runs out. Now, the devs claim to be working on a redesign to fix this, but somehow I think it isn't going to go well. It very well may be possible at the time of watching this that chip damage is actually implemented, but at this point I kind of have little faith in their redesign. Second, parrying is just too easily, largely due to the extremely small amount of variety in movesets. You're just very predictable regardless of what you try. Now, parrying is done by simply heavy attacking in the same direction as an oncoming attack right before it hits you. And the window is extremely generous, and as players get better and better, they get more and more scared to attack because they know almost everything they do can be parried on reaction. Basically, all this boils down to either pick a character that has an unblockable initiator like Warlord, or pick a character with attacks that are so brokenly fast, like a flickered Peacekeeper zone attack, that occasionally your attacks will get through unpunished. If you didn't pick one of the 3 or 4 characters that can do that, well, enjoy staring at your opponent until one of you dies of boredom, because as soon as you attack, you start losing. Now, when a lot of the hype surrounding a competitive game comes from tournaments, and tournaments consist of 2 people doing nothing to each other for fear of reprisal, well, that just doesn't make your game very appealing. While this problem rarely affected me personally, another massive community complaint is the connection quality of the game. First, let me set things straight. Peer-to-peer does not equal the devil. In fact, almost every fighting game that exists is peer-to-peer. Now, the netcode and infrastructure surrounding the peer-to-peer is definitely not good. 4v4s frequently completely shut down on PC, and even more so on console. Granted, now most of this comes from either shoddy player connections or players leaving the game, forcing a resync that frequently results in mass disconnection, but there are games that have handled this well without these issues, so I don't see any excuse. It's extremely frustrating to be in a Dominion match for 15 minutes only to win and then disconnect right at the end because a random dude on the other team left. Players do not like feeling robbed, and they especially do not like having their time wasted, so these issues have caused a lot of hostility and refusal to play the game. Now, the devs have claimed to patch a lot of these issues, but frankly, I haven't noticed a difference for better or for worse. It's always been kind of neutral for me, but I mean, you can Google the complaints and they are everywhere. So, although this one didn't affect me, I will definitely take I will take it on good faith that the community is not lying and that these issues were very, very prevalent. Another massive problem the game has had since launch is terrible matchmaking. There is no reason I, a max rep Orochi, should be put against the guy who just got the game yesterday, and yes, that has happened. What kind of awful experience is that going to be for the new guy? Like, it's probably because not enough people are playing the game anymore, but I am pretty sure that dude would like to wait an additional 2 minutes for a fair fight than getting his ass mercilessly beat every 30 seconds. Nothing turns people off from a game quicker than instant and consistent negative feedback, and the matchmaking system really instills despair on a lot of newer players. Additionally, there is some type of MMR system in the game, but these numbers are obscured to the player, probably to shield the devs the embarrassment from how bad their matchmaking system actually works. The developers also tend to focus on things very few people care about. Holy shit, the faction war! I don't fucking care! That wouldn't be an issue if they didn't ram the animations down your throat every time you start the game, and it wouldn't be an issue if they didn't spend a bordering on hilariously long time discussing it every week on their Warriors Den stream. I actually dislike Bew, the developer that discusses the faction war every stream. That's so unfair. I'm sure she's a wonderful person, but it's like Pavlov conditioning. When I see her, I am conditioned to expect faction war discussion for a half an hour, and I just get angry. They even unintentionally admitted you pretty much have no effect on the faction war when they said, X faction put in the most war assets, but why still won? I mean, unless I heard that wrong, which it's totally possible I did, but doesn't that pretty much concretely say, what you do doesn't matter? Honestly, their obsession with the faction war is just mind-boggling. I'm all for a cool little side thing to add some immersion, that's fine. But they seriously make, weekly recap videos highlighting the epic battle going back and forth. Do people actually care about this shit? You get 40 cents worth of crates at the end of the long cycle. Why are half of every Warriors Den streams analyzing this shit like it's a replay of the goddamn Super Bowl? And for those who don't play or don't know what the faction war is, here's a quick summary. After a match, you can deploy war assets to fight off text that says they're the opposing faction. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's all the impact you have on the faction war. It's a 5-second waste of time at the end of every match. At the end of every long cycle, you get a few crates with 4 items in them. That's it. Why they focus so much time on this aspect of the game just hurts my head. It's not fun. Oh, sorry for the rant. I've watched every single Warriors Den stream from the developers, and every time they spend half an hour somehow dragging out a conversation about this shit, I lose my mind. I think a lot of the problems with For Honor boil down simply to the devs just don't really know what they're doing, and that sounds mean, but I really don't mean it to be. I've met some of them, and from what I've seen in their videos and stuff, they're actually really nice, down-to-earth dudes who just want their game to succeed. Unfortunately, seeing as how they made such a unique concept, they just have no real unified direction. Simply watching their weekly live streams, you can very easily get the sense none of them regularly play the game, which really disconnects them heavily from any responsibilities in fixing it. They tend to answer questions in very vague or frankly completely wrong ways, or they just pick questions that have nothing to do with the things people actually care about. All of this is a supplement to by far the biggest problem with the developers of For Honor. They're just too slow. They're too slow with everything. According to one of the developers, they have over 100 people working on the game. Now, the amount of patching that has been done does not even come close to the amount of work that should be done by that many people. Frankly, the fact that they have so many people working on this game is pathetic. Not just because the game doesn't require that many people, but because the pace at which things are being done more accurately would be represented by like 10 to 20 people, or like a small indie team. All of the patches they have done are mostly just number tweaks, very simple changes. Nothing like new animations from the art team, new voice acting from that talent, etc. Basic bugs from the very beginning of the game are still present. The infamous flicker bug is where an attack can appear to come from two separate directions due to a specific type of attack requiring the input of both light and heavy attacks. The buffer window between reading both inputs allows for the first attack to come from one direction, while the follow-up zone attack comes from another. It's been in the game for over 10 months since the very first alpha, and yet it hasn't been fixed. It's not even complicated to fix. Change zone attacks to the feint button. If you're in a heavy attack, the button will feint your attack. If you're a neutral, it will zone attack. There, problem solved. Why has it been almost a year and this extremely prevalent bug hasn't even begun to be attempted to be fixed yet? It's just pure incompetence at this point. I mean, even if my suggestion didn't work for whatever reason, just try something. Just show us you're actually putting effort into anything. The speed at which the developers update the game is, in my opinion, the number one reason for its downfall. I understand wanting to be cautious and not over-nerfing or over-buffing, but they do that anyway almost every time, so you might as well actually update frequently and carelessly, other than infrequently and, well, still carelessly. The slow speed of their updates gives off this very, we don't really care vibe, which turns a lot of players off. The devs also never really supported their own competitive scene, not once supporting a tournament other than their obvious publicity stunt season premiere tournaments, even though literally hundreds were held by the community. The fact that the season premiere tournaments were so fun and they were watched by tens of thousands of people really makes me question why they didn't do more stuff like that, even on a smaller scale. The main reason I in particular stopped playing was due to their sloth-like speed. Over a month ago, they requested feedback on my main, the Orochi, and I typed out a huge document that was agreed upon by a lot of people. A lot of people other than myself also gave their feedback as well. And I thought to myself, it's finally happening, they're giving my character more than 2 viable attacks. And then a week passed, then another week passed, and I was like, okay, I guess they're finalizing stuff now. Then another week passed, okay, they're just finishing up, then another week passed. And then they finally announced a new patch coming in 2 weeks. And the patch had nothing. It had nothing involving any of the things that they said they would be doing. After that, I just uninstalled the game. I'm just tired of waiting. As most people are. I mean, it doesn't take this long to make changes. It just doesn't. The developers have time and time again been giving countless volumes of feedback by people who somehow understand their game better than them. And they mostly just ignore it and just do nothing. Maybe in a month or two, they'll finally unroll this defensive meta fix, but if I've learned anything from their past efforts, it'll probably be a train wreck when it comes out, and then that will take more months to fix, at which point there's just going to be no one left playing, and not even publicity stunts will save it. They finally released a testing server for the game, but there are so few people on it, it's basically an in-house tournament for this Discord I'm on. I don't even know if it's stubbornness or they truly don't know better, but the devs really should have listened to the competitive players they invited to their headquarters multiple times. I don't know how they can invite them, listen to them, and then just do nothing. I just don't get it. I don't see any way this game can come back, and I really hope it does. I love this game. The concept is so fun. I want it to succeed. I would love for this to be my main game, but I just don't see it. Hopefully, they fix it or someone tries to replicate this great combat system, because I just don't want to see the same mistakes Ubisoft did. The vast majority of people have dropped For Honor, but I mean, to be fair, the majority would have dropped the game anyway, because that's just the nature of fighting games. People don't want to spend a huge amount of time attaining a level in which they don't get wrecked every match. But still, For Honor could have been so much more than it currently is. It's not completely dead, as the developers are still, allegedly updating the game. There's still, maybe tournaments coming. There's still defensive meta fixes and things like that that are all possibly coming maybe sometime in the future, maybe possibly. But they've drained all the hope from me. I just have no hope for its future anymore. And that seriously bums me out because For Honor showed such incredible promise. Well, that is it for the video, guys. In case you can't tell, I'm definitely passionate about this game. I didn't want it to die. I really, really liked it. I put a lot of time into it, and maybe there will be some Miracle Phoenix level 9 True Resurrection revival. I don't know, man. Like, it's possible. Anything's possible. They did it with Rainbow Six Siege. It's certainly possible, but they screwed up a lot. They screwed up a lot. And the very foundation of the game was screwed from the get-go from their kind of, underestimating the player base. So that's it. Hopefully they fix things. I don't know if it's going to happen, though. But thank you for watching if you stuck out. This is a very long video and a long rant. So thanks for watching, guys. And hopefully I can see you sometime in For Honor later. But if not, I guess there's Absolver.